This is kind of an icebreaker session. We're going to go around the room. We're hoping that it'll be a pretty quick process, but we just want to set this meeting apart, that this is a very informal gathering, blending researchers, clinicians, advocates, and families of those affected by SCN8A. So we're going to do a very quick name, location, what your title is if you're a clinician, researcher, parent, etc., and just quickly get around the room so that everyone has a better idea who's family, who's research, who's clinician, etc. So I'll start. My name is Julianne Bradish, and I am here as a parent advocate. My 2.5-year-old daughter, Adeline, is affected by the SCN8A mutation, and I'm coming from Michigan.
Michael Hammer, researcher and parent.
And let me add too, we don't have a microphone. I apologize, that was a little glitch that happened. So when people do speak, please just try to project your voice so that everyone in the room can hear. We do have a live feed, so any speakers will have a microphone here, but just for everyone around the room. Thank you.
Nicole Porter, mom to almost 2-year-old Adelaide with SCN8A.
I'm a child neurologist. I'm head of child neurology at Children's in Washington, D.C. I'm a clinical investigator.
I'm Barbara Croner, and I'm an epidemiologist and a researcher, and I'm head of one of the heads of their epilepsy network, of which the SCN8 parents and families are welcome to join.
I'm Karen Varner. I am the parent of Lily. She's 17.5 years old, and she has SCN8A.
And I'm Brian, and this is my wife Sandy, and we are parents of Cameron, who also has the SCN8A mutation. We're also from Knoxville, Tennessee.
I'm Maggie Russell. I'm her advocate to Diamond B. O'Meara, and this is Alexa Nair, my twin sister. Hi, I'm Pinelli. I'm the mother to Maximus Cabrera, who has SCN8A, and we're from Miami, Florida. I'm Krista Smith, my husband Sean, and our little guy who's 5, his name's Connor. He is also affected by SCN8A. We're from Richmond, Virginia, and we never like to stray too far from our neurologist. I'll let you introduce yourself.
I'm Nick Brennan, I'm a child neurologist at the University of Virginia. Eric Gossel, child neurologist, Baltimore.
I'm Ann Hislop, child neurologist in Miami.
Hi, Min Lang, child neurologist in Orlando, African
I'm a grandfather. To come tell me back.
I'm Gabi Conacher from Washington, D.C., and our son Elliot, who is just turned 3, has SCN8A, and he's at home. Didn't make it in time, so we're sad to see that, but we're happy to meet all of you.
I'm Jacob Gard. This is my wife Megan and our son Clayton. He'll be 6 months old. In Illinois, he's got SCN8A.
I'm Derek Stelzner with Jennifer. We're parents to a 4-year-old Ryan in Philadelphia area.
I'm Tanya Babineau, and I'm a parent to Natasha. She's 3, and she has SCN8A, and lives in Calgary.
I'm Jayetta Hecker, and I'm from D.C., and I'm Elliot's grandma.
There you go.
Hi, I'm Jessica Jenkins. I'm Dustin and I's mom.
Okay, I'm Daniel. My 2-year-old son Rafael has SCN8A mutation, and I'm from Brazil. And Nathan is my brother-in-law, also from Brazil.
And the technician.
So, I am Christine Gutierrez. I'm a neurologist, and I am the doctor of Rafael. From Brazil as well.
I am Luciana from São Paulo,
child neurologist.
I am Daniela from Brazil, child neurologist. I am Shelley Brapian, this is my husband Martin. We are Nico's parents. He is 2 years old and has the SCN8A. We're from near Toronto.
My name is Andy Redfern. My wife Mallie Redfern and her son Oliver suffers from SCN9 and 8A, and he's 3 years old.
We're from Baden.
Oh yeah, so we're close to Toronto.
My name is Gigi. I am pediatrician in Japan. Now I'm working Michael Hammer's lab, so I'm postdoc now. I'm Shinichi Hirose from Fukuoka, Japan. I like to describe myself a lay pediatrician, but I have been conducting basic research for epilepsy to the SCN8A development.
I'm Nancy. I'm a child neurologist in Seattle.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. Ethan Goldberg. I'm a neurologist here at Hospital of Philadelphia.
Al Goldman. I'm a researcher at the University of California, Irvine.
I'm Mandy Harris. I'm a child neurologist at Riley Hospital, Minneapolis, and a physician of patients who have SCN8A.
Chloe Creamer, I'm a pediatric.
Mary Straw, researcher in public health policy.
Hi, my name is Penny Today. I'm working with then
J.P. Johnson, I'm also a senior.
And Charlie Cohen from SCN8A. No, SCN8A.
I'm Brian Barker. I'm a researcher at the University. I'm also a researcher at the University of Michigan.
Michelle Esther, I'm a neurogenetic fellow in Boston.
Heather Olson, neurologist at Hospital.
I'm Catherine. I'm David, and I'm a community assistant.
Dave Young, father of 4-year-old daughter with
I am Heather Mumford. I'm a clinical geneticist and researcher doing epilepsy genetics from Canada.
I'm Miriam Meisler. I'm a basic researcher. I've been working on SCN8A for most of my adult life from the university.
I lived so long, and I'm a doctoral fellow at the university.
I'm Andrew Sky. I'm a researcher at the
And I'm Katie Brennan. I'm a researcher at the University of Michigan studying
Hi everyone who just joined us. There's some seats up here. If you guys want to introduce yourselves to.
I'm Judge Tyrone, also a pediatric from Washington, D.C.
Okay, thank you, all of you, for joining us. Again, we apologize for not having a microphone. If anyone can't hear me, just raise your hand and let me know. I don't have much of a voice left today, so hopefully I'll be able to project that for you. So my name is Hilary Savoie. I'm the founder and the director of the T Syndrome Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to funding medical research and awareness campaigns for both PCDH19 epilepsy and SCN8A epilepsy. More importantly, I'm the mother of this beautiful little girl you see behind me, Esme. Esme is the inspiration for my foundation. She's 5 years old. She is known to have several genetic mutations. including both TCD-H19 and SCN8A mutations of unknown significance. But Esme is a lot like other children with SCN8A. She has severe epilepsy, developmental delay, a movement disorder, and a number of other symptoms. When Esme's SCN8A mutation was found about a year ago, I was a little bit in shock because we had already had another diagnosis, and very quickly I found Julianne Bradish, who was running just the most amazing family support group that you could possibly imagine on Facebook. And I joined, and I found myself there feeling like I had a better and more supportive community than I'd had in all of the previous years of being Esme's mom. And in Julianne, I recognized a similarly driven parent advocate, and we very quickly began discussing ways to support the SCN8A community. We're fortunate enough to attend the Insightful Wishes for Elliot SCN8A researcher meeting last April, where we met with many of the researchers who are here today. And that meeting, which was led by Jayetta and Gabi of Wishes for Elliot, as a result of that meeting, we co-funded a $20,000 grant to Michael Hammer for his work with the SCN8A patient registry and interactive website. And Julianne and I had known that many of the parents in our community wanted to meet the researchers who were working on SCN8A research, both to better understand what the current research was and also to form personal connections with you. They wanted to be connected to the people who they feel are making a difference in their children's lives. What we didn't know and what we learned at that meeting was that so many of you were touched by meeting parents of children with SCN8A and children with SCN8A. And so we were really touched by that notion that it helped you all do your work better to meet us. So that realization was the spark that started the idea for today's meeting. Today's meeting was envisioned as a way for parents to tell researchers and clinicians more about their children and their children's lives, as well as a way for leading researchers in SCN8A to help families understand more about their research. But more than that, the idea was for all of us to meet as people who share a hope for the SCN8A community. And we're really excited to see how this goes. It's been a bit of a grand experiment. When Julianne and I first started talking about this, we said, there'll be 15 people. We'll meet in a hotel room and we'll order pizza. This is a little different from that. We were really surprised at not just the number of researchers who are interested, but the number of families who are willing to travel. And it's okay. The meeting today was really made possible by months of Julianne's dedicated work, and there are a number of other members of our community who also have been essential to making today's meeting work. Daniel and Nathan have been unbelievable. They have traveled here from Brazil yesterday, and they're leaving tomorrow. They organized all of the tech for this event, and they're providing a live feed so that families who couldn't travel today can watch, and it will be available online. So all of you, once it's up and running, we'll be able to share links with all of you so you can see today's presentations again. And Mackenzie, who I said this earlier, but it's very true. She stuck stickers on everything that's on your tables and organized all of that material. She's been tremendous help also with fundraising for this event. And thank you as well to all of the families who shared information about this event with your doctors, who encouraged people to come, and who traveled really great distances in many cases to be here today. And thank you for everyone who's watching remotely. Thanks so much to all of your researchers and clinicians who graciously offer your time to be here today. It means a lot to me personally and to our community. So I'm going to hand things over to Julianne. She's our Q Syndrome SCN8A advisor. She's going to get things started today. So as I said briefly before, my name is Julianne Bradish. Originally by trade, I was a pharmacist. I haven't worked for 2 years since our journey with SCN8A began in October of 2013. As I said before, my 2.5-year-old daughter, Adeline, the one on my husband's shoulders and here, is affected by SCN8A. I have an older daughter, Amelia, who's 4, and a new daughter coming on the way. So basically, when we got our news in October of 2013, my husband and I immediately went to the internet. I'm pretty sure most of the parents here have done that. Maybe even some of the clinicians and researchers, when we first saw that on the sequencing, probably did the same. At that time, there wasn't a lot of information out there, so we looked for any published works that we could find, and we began cold calling and emailing any researcher who had a name on a publication anywhere in the world. And it wasn't long before I got in touch with Michael Hammer. Despite our fears and mourning over the unknowns of our daughter's future, as any parent in here can relate to, a lot of the clinicians as well, not having concrete answers for the children, Dr. Hammer, that conversation offered more comfort and solace than words can even describe. So he was an extremely vital role in the journey since the beginning for me. His support, his friendship, and his advocacy for this entire community is appreciated by everybody. And I just feel that I have to make a point that we would not be, none of us in this room, if it weren't for Dr. Hammer. So thank you. While my daughter was the muse to get me started with the support group, Dr. Hammer has been the engine that's kept me on track, continuing to be motivated to dedicate myself to this community. It's really hard for me and surreal to believe that 2 years after we got that news and there was really nothing available to us, that I'm standing here in front of this room of people, world experts. We have families representing 3 countries right here. Countless countries among the professionals. So thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. I wanted to thank Hillary for taking me under her wing with the Cute Syndrome Foundation. Her expertise and work with philanthropy really helped kind of drive this from a dream of mine into the reality of us all being here today. So thank you. I want to thank all of you researchers out there for dedicating your careers to learning more about this condition to help all of our children and the children that will come in the future. So thank you all. And then to the clinicians, and I have to especially point out Dr. Mandy Harris. She's my daughter's personal neurologist. And despite a couple moves throughout the country while my husband was finishing his medical training, she's stayed a very vital part of our lives, consulting with other physicians, staying in touch with us, and has been a huge patient advocate, not only for myself, but many of you have also reached out to her via email or telephone for guidance with your own patients. So thank you, Dr. Harris. Thank you to all the families for your support and your dedication, not only to helping your own children, but for coming today to represent this community and help all of our children. So thank you all, and without further ado, I'm going to pass on the mic to Dr. Michael Hammer.
Well, Julianne asked me to say a few words about where we've been, how we got here, and where we're going. So I just threw some things together, hoping, I thought it would be a lot more, well, it's informal, but I didn't think there would be this many folks. But
Neither did we.
So this is a lovely photograph of one of the family's children in England. So we have the next slide. I was just going to give you a little timeline on how, to show you how quickly this has all evolved. First of all, the gene and the channel, the NAV 1.6 voltage gated sodium channel, was discovered in 1995 by Miriam Meitzler and another guy who we don't talk to anymore because he doesn't show up at meetings. But Miriam is, I don't know, my hero. She was the person I called when we found out that my daughter had an SCN8A mutation. And I thank you so much, Miriam, for your support and for all the work you've done. This wouldn't be possible without you. Miriam has also trained many of you in the room, so you'll know how important she has been. The interesting thing was that in the mouse model, the mutations that Miriam was working with and many of you others didn't have epilepsy. They had more of an ataxic phenotype. There was a mutation in humans in 2006 that was published. Also, Miriam's lab was involved. Trudeau, 2006, and it was a truncating mutation, and epilepsy wasn't part of that phenotype either. So, and then Andrew Essig, who's here, showed that SCN8A mutants exhibit increased resistance to induce seizures by SCN1A. So when we found the SCN8A mutation in my daughter, we were a little perplexed because it didn't seem to jive with what was published previously. Next slide. And this is my daughter. On a personal note, I spent 15 years wondering if there was anyone else like my daughter, and I think my daughter was listening, because here we are, and I know the answer now. And she has guided me. As a parent, I think all of you feel very, very influenced by your children, how it's made you a better person. And in my case, she's guided me to all of the things that I do now. So she's with me at all times. Unfortunately, Shay passed away in the process of discovering that she had the SCN8A gene. Fortunately, there was a postdoc in my lab named Krishna Virama who couldn't make it here tonight, who carried on when I couldn't, and called me one day, said, "I think we found the gene." And I'm indebted to him forever as well. Next slide. There's Krishna right there on the upper right. We published in 2012, just a little 3.5 years ago. Beautiful work by Miriam and Steve Waxman, helped us do the functional studies. There's always a guess as to whether this was the actual cause, but we soon found out from other patients having SCN8A that we were right, and here we are today. Next. So here we were in 2012. Shay's mutation is N1768D. That was the only mutation we knew at the time. Next slide. That's what we know today. And we know it in great part because there have been publications. Heather Meffer's here, and her lab produced one of the first big additions to the literature with 17 new mutations last year. And you can see that the lavender-colored stars are things that we haven't published, that nobody's published, and are part of our crowdsourcing efforts to get as much information as we can. The publications on the next slide, you can see the trend, 2012 to now. There have been an increasing number of publications, an increasing number of cases. But as you can see, the unpublished cases now outpace the published cases. And I'm afraid that's going to be the trend for the future in many different areas of medicine and genetics. We're going to have to somehow figure out how to take crowdsourced data, if you will, and make it into real studies that we trust and are validated. Through the efforts and the funding that came from these family members and the Wishes for Elliott project, and as Julian and Hillary mentioned, the joint efforts of these groups, we've been able to launch a website. Next slide. Before I get to that, it's too bad the colors aren't working, but this is Julianne's great effort at bringing us together through the Facebook support group. You can see now, it's a little hard to see the map, but there are 75 kids, 72 families worldwide that are part of our group. It's an incredibly warm and supportive group. There are posts every day. There are immediate answers to people's posts, and I'm amazed. I learned so much not only about SCN8A, but about all the concerns and about each of the people here who is part of this warm family group. And you can see that we've, wherever genetic testing exists, we find patients. We've crowded the Americas, moving into South America and across Europe. We have researchers here now who are joining with us in building our database in Europe. Next slide. I want to say that one of the landmarks along the way to this point tonight was a wonderful, wonderful meeting that Julianne referred to that was sponsored by Wishes for Elliott back in April. Many of you were here at that meeting. That was the first time we had a scientific gathering around SCN8A. That was the first time that I had met other children with SCN8A. It was overwhelming to me then, as it is to me now, to have all of you here. Notice that if you go to the Wishes for Elliott website, you will see there is a competition for a grant that they are co-sponsoring with AES. So all of you young and energetic folks, researcher on the clinical side, researcher side, please go to their website and see about this, if you can apply for this funding. Next slide. This is, again, the colors aren't coming through too well, but this is part of the home page for the community-based website that we're building with the funding support that has been generously donated to us. I encourage you all to go to SCN8A.net. It's for families, it's for doctors, it's for researchers. We've really built up the doctor side of it. And if I could, at some point, pass around a notepad and have all the neurologists, pediatric neurologists who are seeing patients, please sign up, because I would love to add you to our growing doctors network. This is so critical as patients show up in parts of the country or world where no one has ever seen SCN8A. Mistakes can be made. I'm not saying they have been, but it's very easy to diagnose this as Dravet or something else that we don't treat the same way. And all the information you need to know, I want to put on this website, and much of it is there. Some of us have worked together to just complete a gene review for SCN8A that is not published yet, but some of the information in that gene review can be found here. Differential diagnosis, management, drugs, medication guides, and things like that. I want it to all be in one place so it's not hard to find. Next slide. I also want to encourage the families to return the questionnaires that they can get from both the Facebook page and we will eventually have available on the website. We have learned so much from patients, families filling out the questionnaire, which is 15 pages. It's very targeted to SCN8A. We've discovered many things by getting the data back from the families. We've discovered there's 4 different developmental profiles that most of the kids fit into. We've discovered that there's certain drugs that work well, sodium channel blockers, trilaptol and phenytoin, and there are certain drugs that don't seem to work so well, mainly Keppra, which, you know, it may work for somebody, but in general, it doesn't seem to be a very good drug. And so I encourage you all to think about a protocol that someone, you know, we could make available where you test one drug and then another and another if necessary, but start with the ones that are working, not with the ones that aren't working. So it's very important to have this registry. And again, the website will describe all of this. I don't need to go into the details. Next slide. That's what I already said. Next. I won't go into too many of the things we've learned, but one of the surprising things is that there's a bimodal distribution on the age of onset. Some of our children are born with epilepsy, with seizures. Some mothers report tremors in utero, whereas the other half develop them at 5 to 6 months, like Dravet syndrome. So it's a very unusual distribution for just that one particular clinical characteristic. And I think there are a lot of clues that could be hiding behind that distribution that we would like to investigate, maybe genotype-phenotype correlations or prognostic aspects of just age of onset that could help us know what the future might look like a little bit. I think that's it. I don't want to go into too many details, but what's the next one? Yeah, it's more of the same. So I think I've used up my 20 minutes. No? I just thank everyone for showing up. I know that many of you who were in the DC meeting in April were inspired, and I was really inspired by some of the things that were already being done in the laboratory. Where we're headed is so much determined by the progress you guys make in the lab, and Miriam has a mouse model that we have in my lab. We're going to make a new mouse model with another variant that 2 children had who passed away, had very serious respiratory problems. We're making a mouse model with that variant. I know that others in the room are making mouse models and other types of models to study this variation, this gene and its clinical characteristics. So much about where we're going is dependent on the research that you all carry out in the future. And I hope you inspire, younger folks to join with us and really make this a successful, quickly growing area as it has been over the last 3 years. Thank you all.
So now we're going to take about 30 minutes to allow some of the families who are here to have some floor time to speak about their journeys, their children, some of their hopes and dreams for the future of SCN8A for our community. So the first parent I'd like to introduce is Karen Varner.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to share my daughter's story with you all tonight. My name is Karen Varner, and my daughter's name is Lily. Mr. and Mrs. Varner, your daughter has been diagnosed with SCN8A. Those words brought about a lot of emotion, fear, confusion, and even happiness. But mostly it brought us questions. What does this mean for our daughter and for us? Before I answer that, let me give you a little history about my daughter. Lily was born 17 and a half years ago on March 2nd, 1998. My pregnancy was complicated due to an anti-E antibody I had in my blood. It is similar to being Rh negative, but there is no treatment for it, and it can cause congestive heart failure in the fetus and sometimes requires a blood transfusion in utero. At 37 weeks, it began to have an effect on Lily, and so I was induced. When Lily was delivered, she came out blue and stiff with her arm pointed straight above her head. She was taken to the nursery where she was intubated and then transported across the street to the neonatal intensive care unit at the local children's hospital. At that time, we were told she had respiratory distress due to a quick birth. However, after 17 years of seizures, I can say without a doubt she came out having a seizure. Lily spent 5 days in the NICU with no further events, and we were sent home on a Billy Light due to jaundice. 1 week later, she had her first seizure at home after putting her to bed, so we called 911. Of course, the seizure stopped and she was sleeping when they arrived. I remember the first question from the EMT was, "Is this your first child?" We went to the emergency room, but in 1998, camera phones did not exist. So even with my description, they chalked it up to reflux and set us up for tests and sent us on our way. 2 weeks later, on the day of her christening, Lily had another seizure during her party. We thankfully had the video camera out, so we recorded the seizure, loaded Lily and the camera up, and headed to the emergency room. At 1 month of age, Lily was diagnosed with a seizure disorder. During Lily's first 8 months of life, she had tonic-clonic seizures, which were sporadic, averaged 10 to 15 minutes in length, and she stopped breathing with all of them. She also experienced myoclonic seizures during that first year, but they stopped over time. At 8 months, her seizures began to cycle. A cycle would begin with a status seizure, and then for the next 3 to 4 months, she would seize multiple times per day, every day. We know illness can trigger seizures, but we have never been able to pinpoint what started the cycles because many began when she was not sick. As the cycle began, we would slowly, over the next couple of weeks, watch our happy, smiling, active child lose all her development and become an empty shell. During Lily's first year of life, she developed slowly, but did meet some milestones. She could briefly prop sit, self-feed, roll, and take steps with assistance. When a cycle started, she would lose it all, and only part of her development would come back when the seizures stopped. At 1.5 years, we had to insert a feeding tube in order to feed her during the seizure cycle, and consequently, she no longer eats by mouth. Lily is currently at a 1 to 2 year developmental age and no longer rolls or sits and is confined to a wheelchair. However, she still smiles, plays with toys, and can manipulate objects with her hands. As quick as the seizure started, they would stop, and we would slowly get our smiley little girl back, and for the next 3 or so months, she would be seizure-free. Over the past 17 years, Lily has been on phenobarb, Klonopin, Depakote, Lamictal, Primidone, Neurontin, Trileptal, Keppra, Felbutol, and Zonegrin, as well as trying a ketogenic diet. She is currently taking Topamax, Dilantin, Onfi, and has a vagus nerve stimulator. To this day, the only thing we can say for sure that has worked for her is the vagus nerve stimulator, which was implanted at 4 years of age, and Dilantin. The vagus nerve stimulator decreased her seizures from 10 minutes in length to under a minute, and Dilantin, which she has taken since she was 3 months old, works as long as her level is kept around 25. The longest she has gone without a seizure is 10 months, and we think Felbutol might have been the factor, but then the cycles began again, and no matter what we did with the dosing, it no longer worked, and it was stopped. Lily was diagnosed with a complex 4 mitochondrial disorder at age 4, so we were thrilled to have finally gotten an answer. We saw specialists at the Cleveland Clinic regarding this diagnosis, and were put on a mito cocktail and sent on our way. Then in 2011, when Lily was 13 years old, we began to have some health issues again, so we spoke to our neurologist about returning to the Cleveland Clinic, and he informed us that there is a new doctor there, Dr. Sumit Parikh. After spending an hour with us, he informed us that he did not feel that Lily had a mitochondrial disorder, or if she did, it was not her only diagnosis. So we began genetic testing again. When we had exhausted all testing, which all came back normal, whole exome testing came about, and here we are today. The hardest thing about SCN8A is the effect it not only has on a child, but on the family as well. We have 2 older children, and my biggest regret is that they had to miss out on many things just due to their sister's seizures. That first year, my husband and I stayed at the hospital with Lily, and our other children stayed with friends since we did not have family in the area. We missed out on their activities, and we were exhausted all the time. After about a year, we realized our lives would never be normal again, so it's time to create a new normal. My husband and I took turns staying at the hospital, so we both weren't exhausted all the time, and one of us was always with our other children. I also made it a goal that we always traveled as a family, and Lily participated in everything the rest of the family did. It was never easy and always stressful. Trips were postponed or canceled, visits were made to emergency rooms in other states, but I am happy to say we have always traveled together, and Lily has experienced many wonderful things. The best advice I can give to parents, since Lily so far is the oldest in our group, don't let the seizures rule your life. I have learned over 17 years that no matter what you do, your child is going to seize at one time or other. Sometimes they will have a quick recovery and act like nothing happened, and other times they will need to rest. Let them experience the world and life. Obviously, be cautious around people who are sick, but don't become a prisoner in your home. I also learned as a mom you can't do it all yourself. It is natural for a mom to want to solely care for their sick child, and in my case, I'm a nurse as well, so I felt it was my responsibility. Boy, was I wrong. I am proud to say that if I had to be away from home for a few hours or days, Lily would be in great hands. My husband and my children all know how to care for her. Although there are some things I won't ask them to do, they can manage without me. This is so important for your physical and mental well-being. So back to my question. What does this new diagnosis mean for us? I now truly feel we have the correct diagnosis, which is always wonderful for a mom. I always questioned if I ate something, took something, or did something that could have caused her problems, but now we know. We also feel better for our other 2 children when they decide to have kids of their own, since it is not genetic. However, we have encouraged them to do genetic testing before they start a family. Unfortunately, there is no cure or treatment for SCN8 right now, but that is why we are here today, to provide information to you, the researchers, to educate neurologists on possible treatments and what to look for with this disorder, and finally to provide support and management and encouragement to other families affected by SCN8A. There may not be any answers for my daughter, but I hope by sharing Lily's story and participating in research studies, we can help to provide answers for children and families in the future and keep a smile like my daughter's on all their faces. Thank you. Okay. They say that you never truly understand love until you have a child. I always thought I got it until I actually became a mommy myself to the beautiful Adelaide Marie. Here was the perfect angel, 10 fingers, 10 toes, a cherub little face, and eyes that just melted everyone's heart. Our lives could not have possibly been any better. For 6 whole weeks, we were living the dream until our world came crashing down and our nightmare began. After feeding Addie, I decided that instead of putting her down for a nap right away, I would hold her and cuddle her for a few extra minutes. Thank God I did. Suddenly, I felt my daughter go completely rigid. I looked down at her, and her lips and face turned blue. Her eyes were wide open, and she was not breathing. After frantically calling 911, the ambulance rushed us to a local hospital where no one knew what was going on with our sweet girl. We were then airlifted to another facility. My husband and I couldn't comprehend what was going on, and doctors couldn't even reassure us that if Addie would make it through the night. No one at the hospital had ever seen anything so striking with such a young baby. Finally, after several hours, she was stabilized. We thought we could finally wake up and go back to normalcy. Little did we know that this horrifying incident would soon become our normal. After months of medicine failures, Keppra anyone, and multiple genetic tests, all with the everything is normal results, we got the call from the genetics fellow. Your daughter has an extremely rare genetic mutation called SCN8A. Very little is known except that your daughter can either die from a seizure, she will have developmental delays, or she will be severely disabled. Yes, that is exactly what was told to me over the phone. I asked her how rare and what kind of number she was talking about. And after 10 minutes of dancing around the answer, she told me 12. We only have access to 12 known cases at this time. The spectrum is extremely broad, but the likelihood of her having a normal life is very slim. I then told the fellow, well, until we have more concrete research, don't dare tell a parent, again, that their child doesn't have a chance. That started our journey into finding more information on SCN8A and trying to find other families struggling with this mutation and how to find the appropriate care. I did what they tell every parent not to do. I Googled SCN8A. There were literally 3 results that came up with the query. The first one was a medical article that was filled with terminology, and I couldn't make sense of what I was reading. The second one was SCN8A, Help Adeline Find Answers. It was a Facebook page dedicated to this beautiful little girl and her battle with the same mutation as my Addie. I immediately messaged Adeline's mom, and she encouraged me to join a separate family group that she had created. This group had literally been life-changing. We found a new family, a family that completely understands exactly what we have experienced, a family that provides critical information that most of our physicians are unfamiliar with due to the rarity of the condition, and most importantly, a family that has given us support in our darkest days and encouragement for every inch stone that we achieve. It has introduced us to invaluable resources, such as reliable information on medications, what has been successful and what has been an atrocity, contact with doctors and researchers, many of you, that actually are interested in the betterment of our children, our world. In particular, Dr. Michael Hammer, who almost never gets the credit he so rightfully deserves. If it wasn't for him, not a single person would be here together in this room. Through the tragic loss of his beautiful Shay, he has dedicated so much time and effort establishing his website, opening so many doors that we never knew existed. Simply, thank you, Michael. While we don't hit the normal milestones as other children, Addie's age and our heart breaks for our daughter's constant struggle on a daily basis, she has become an inspiration for us moving forward. Even though I miss my beautiful baby girl smile more than anything, I know that it's still in there waiting to shine again. If Adelaide can wake up every morning working so hard just to try and get ahead, there is no reason for us to just settle for mediocrity with medical management. A wonderful doctor we had the pleasure of meeting once told our family that even though they only see our children for maybe an hour, we live with them, and no one knows our children better than us.
We don't have to just accept life with seizures as is. When it comes down to it, we aren't talking about numbers or what may have worked for other children with other illnesses. We are talking about our children's lives, our lives. It is important that our voices be heard. We may not have medical degrees, but this is our everyday, and believe me, we do understand. We know that just because things do not make sense on paper, it doesn't mean they don't make sense for our child. We are so incredibly thankful, not only for each of you showing up today, but for allowing our families to be present and have a voice. It gives us hope. Hope that you care and are willing to hear our concerns. Hope that you have our children's best interests at heart. Thank you for listening, really listening, and trusting our voices and taking on this huge challenge. To Julianne, thank you for your passion, your perseverance for all of our children, and for being the most amazing friend and support. Tonight happened because of you. Your dedication and willingness to include us all. Thank you will never be enough. To Hillary, thank you for always running a fine comb through the details to make sure it's done the right way. Thank you for your amazing Cute Syndrome Foundation for making this a reality. You ladies have hearts bigger than any I have ever known. Thank you. To the other families that have traveled to be here, while the reason we are here to begin with is certainly bittersweet, I am honored to call every one of you family. My cousin once told me that overcoming any challenge is always within our reach. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Together, our families, your wonderful physicians, researchers, and more importantly, our superhero children will devour the elephant. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Sandy, and that's Cam. Sorry. Since Cameron was our second child, I thought I had things figured out. I had some experience and was no longer the rookie parent and thought this time was going to go more smoothly. And unfortunately, I couldn't have been more wrong. From the beginning, Cameron was a puzzle. He cried all the time. He had chronic ear infections. He seemed to always be sick. And around 5 months old, we noticed that he seemed to be a lot different than our older son had been as a baby. We also have a 5-year-old. He wasn't developing right. He had stopped smiling, and he started having these strange body movements that we couldn't quite figure out, which we later learned were seizures. Cameron was diagnosed with infantile spasms at 9 months old. And when we got his diagnosis, we felt like we were given a few pieces of the puzzle. We finally had a diagnosis and a reason for what was going on. We had the first steps of a treatment plan, but we didn't have a reason for what was going on or at all what his future would look like. The diagnosis of infantile spasms comes with a pretty grim prognosis. There's a few stories of children who go on to develop normally, but not many. The next year and a half was filled with many things. Cameron gaining and losing seizure control. We tried several different medications and in different combinations. He developed 2 additional seizure types. We went to weekly visits with physical, occupational, and speech therapy, and also weekly visits with his early intervention teacher. And of course, this whole time we were looking for a cause. All of his initial diagnostic testing came back normal. We asked to be referred to a geneticist. Our neurologist wasn't really pushing finding a cause, so we decided to go see the geneticist, and she told us about whole exome sequencing. So we did the test, and it took 7 months to come back, and when we finally got the results, we found out that he had the SCN8A mutation. Finally, knowing the cause for his seizures and his developmental issues was a huge relief, but at the same time, it came with a lot of questions. When we got his results, we were told that he was one of only a few in the world. They told us there were 4 other published cases and that he was number 5. So there wasn't really much information they could give us. They told us the other 4 cases that those children all had seizures, but that's really all that they could tell us. They told us they would check back with us in 2 more years, and hopefully they would be able to tell us more then. So we kind of just accepted that we weren't going to know anything else for a while. Then several months later on Facebook, I just happened to run across a post in a completely different group of a mother asking a question about something else, and she happened to reference that her child had the SCN8A mutation. And I got so excited, and I messaged her and told her about Cameron, and she told me about this group that all these families are in, and I joined right away. And I was so amazed and excited to see not only almost 50 other families, but one living right in my own town, which is Karen and Lily. So that was really exciting. Cam's very delayed. The SCN8A is definitely affecting our lives. He is developmentally delayed, and that comes with a lot of struggles. We're not sure if he'll ever talk, what kind of cognitive developmental level he'll reach, or if he will ever be able to live on his own. He does have excellent seizure control currently, but it took us a long time to get to this point, and we definitely know that we can lose it at any time because we've been there before. However, at the same time, finding out about this mutation has been a huge blessing because we now have more pieces of this puzzle that is Cameron. In the short amount of time we have known about his diagnosis, we've found and connected with a whole community of families dealing with the same thing as us. We've begun to collect data together and information that I believe is vital for the future. My hope for the future is that one day families getting the SCN8A diagnosis will not face so much of the uncertainty that most of us are facing now. I hope for a day when their doctors will be able to tell them which medications are more or less likely to work with more certainty and which ones they should avoid because it could make their seizures worse. I hope that these recommendations will be able to be based on large amounts of research and real-life data across all ages of children and not just guesses and small amounts of children. I hope for a day when a doctor will be able to sit with a scared and sad parent and arm them with information instead of giving them more questions. I know that healthcare is not an exact science, and I know that all patients can be different, but I'd love to see a future where, based on the specific genetic results and presentation of seizure type, we can give a better idea of prognosis and what kind of development to expect instead of the general grim statistics a lot of us are told now at the time of diagnosis. I hope it will be even easier than it is now for parents and families to connect with each other and patients to connect with each other that are in the same situation as them and have access to the right type of therapy. My biggest hope for the future is for families to have more reasons to be positive and have hope. That's one of the things that a lot of people are lacking. You know, it's very, very hard and very sad, and I really want people to be positive and have every reason in the world to hope. I really thank you all for being here and for your interest and dedication in researching SCN8A, and we would be happy to answer any questions later tonight about Cameron or our experiences. Thank you.
So hello everyone. As you know, English is not my native language, so sorry for mistakes. And I will talk a little bit of myself, Rafael. So speaking in public is already a huge challenge for me. However, it's much smaller than our challenge here, the struggle to ensure a better future to our beloved children. And I would like to share with you my family history and the struggle with Rafael. So Rafael was born in July 2013 as a typical baby, and his development was normal until he reached 10 months of age. Few days after turning 10 months old, we saw his first seizures as he suddenly spasmed. We were very desperate. We rushed to the hospital, and 2 days later, we got the first diagnosis: West syndrome, idiopathic stripe. We started the drug treatment with antiepileptic drugs. The doctor's recommendation was to control the seizures to increase the possibility of cure and to allow Rafael to live a normal life. But after 12 months after this treatment, the seizures increased, his development regressed, and he lost several skills. And we were very lost and hopeless. Thus, we decided to do the genetic test. So in April 2015, we discovered the mutation in the SCN8A gene. And the recommendation we received in Brazil were, it's a rare disease, so you are not going to find answer. Stop Google. There is no treatment, there are no studies. Go home, keep the current treatment, and never, never, never use lamotrigine, serleptal, integratol. It was pretty hard. We cried and suffered a lot. How could we help our son? After some days, with the help of Google, we found Julian, Dr. Michael Hummer, Gabby, all of you, and all research initiatives. We are not alone anymore. And this motivated us to begin in Brazil a fundraising campaign to support research. Because our understanding is that science is the only way to change Rafael history and that of the other children in our group. So researchers and professionals here, on behalf of my family, we thank you so much for our amazing dedication to study and working with SCN8A disorder. And so that our dreams may come true, so that our children can live instead of survive, we need your help. And this is the message I brought from Brazil to share with all of you. We need your help. 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 We need your help.
Hi. My name is SCN8A. Before I start my speech, I just want to thank you all for being here and listening to our stories. This has definitely been a journey. And thank you, you guys, Julianne and Hillary, for everything. You guys saved our lives. You really did. Okay. I would like to tell you about a boy I have yet to meet. He's about 14 months old now and full of life. Instead of spending time in the hospital, he spends time playing outside with his dogs, Frank and Sam. Instead of being poked and prodded with needles and machines, he gets scrapes and bruises from playing in the playground. Instead of being fed liquids by G-tube, he devours everything in sight. He runs around the house with his diaper on his head, and he scares his mommy when he climbs onto the kitchen counter. Everyone adores him. He laughs at funny faces and enjoys a good tickle fight. He runs, dances, and loves the drums. He laughs with Mickey, cries when it's time for bed, and loves when mommy and daddy read to him. He doesn't need weekly blood tests to make sure the medicines and diet isn't damaging his organs. He doesn't have 10 specialists following his case, and he's never been hospitalized 6 times for a minimum of 2 weeks. And when he smiles, it's like the world is smiling back at you. SCN8A mutation has kept this boy from me. He suffers from infantile spasms on a daily basis since he was 2 months old. My son is a prisoner to this disease, and I pray every day for his release. He's waiting for mommy and daddy to save him from this dark prison, but unfortunately we don't have the answers yet. Maybe there will come a day where someone at this amazing gathering will help us to find that answer. Until then, I will continue fighting to save my heart, my soul, my Max. Thank you. So we really wanted to give all of you a chance to get to know the members of our community. We're going to take a break now and have some dinner. I hope that you guys will all mingle a little bit and get to know each other better. And then after dinner, we will begin with some clinician presentations. So there's food in the back. Help yourselves, and we'll get your attention in a little bit after you've had a chance.
Try to be back just around 7 o'clock on the hour. We'll try and get started again.